It was a quiet Tuesday morning at the Providence Municipal Court. The clock read 10:15. Judge Frank Caprio was preparing for what he thought would be another ordinary day. Stack of routine cases, parking violations, and small fines that passed like clockwork. The courtroom was full, humming with soft chatter. People waited anxiously for their turn, clutching tickets and papers. No one knew that in just a few moments, something remarkable would unfold. A story that would remind everyone in that room what true humanity looks like. Case number 58721, called the court officer. Sarah Johnson. Handicapped parking violation. The courtroom doors opened and a young woman stepped in. She looked exhausted. Her hospital blue scrubs wrinkled, her dark hair pulled into a loose bun. Her name badge glinted faintly under the courtroom lights. Sarah Johnson. Registered nurse. She was only 29, but her eyes carried the kind of weariness that only comes from saving lives day after day. As she walked toward the bench, a quiet murmur spread through the courtroom. Some people recognized her immediately. "That's the nurse from the I-95 crash," someone whispered. "The one who saved those people." Sarah's friend and colleague, Lisa Martinez, walked beside her for support. Both worked at St. Mary Hospital, Lisa in pediatrics, Sarah in the emergency room. Sarah gripped a folder filled with documents and letters. But it wasn't the paper that weighed on her. It was the knowledge that this simple parking ticket could cost her everything. Judge Caprio lifted his eyes from the file. "Miss Johnson," he said gently, "you're charged with parking in a handicapped space on Waterfront Drive. How do you plead?" Sarah's voice was steady, though tired. "Guilty, Your Honor. But please, may I explain why I parked there?" "Of course," Judge Caprio nodded. "Tell us what happened." Sarah took a deep breath. That day I had just finished a 14-hour shift at the hospital. I was heading home when traffic suddenly stopped on Waterfront Drive. A massive accident had just happened. 5 cars, all tangled. Without thinking, I pulled over into the nearest open spot. It happened to be a handicapped space. But I wasn't thinking about parking rules, Your Honor. I was thinking about the people who might be dying in those cars. The courtroom fell silent. "I ran to the wreckage," Sarah continued, her voice trembling as memories rushed back. "There was a young couple in the first car. The man was unconscious, bleeding heavily, and his wife. She was 8 months pregnant, trapped, and in labor from the shock. I calmed her down, helped her breathe, and stopped the bleeding on her husband's head with the first aid kit I always carry." Even Judge Caprio leaned forward slightly, his pen forgotten. "In the next car," Sarah said, "an elderly woman was having a heart attack. Her husband was panicking. I got her out, gave her aspirin, and kept her conscious until help arrived. Then I found a young man frozen in shock, refusing to move. I talked him out of the car, just trying to make him trust me." Sarah's eyes softened with emotion. "There was a little girl too, Sophia, 8 years old. Her arm was broken. I said it as best as I could while telling her a story to distract her from the pain. And in the last car, there was a man trapped inside, barely breathing. His name was Richard Williams. I talked to him the whole time, kept him awake, kept him alive until the paramedics came." She paused, her voice catching. "I stayed there for 45 minutes, Your Honor. When I came back to my car, I saw the ticket." Judge Caprio looked at her for a long moment. "Do you have any proof of your actions that day?" Sarah handed over 2 letters. One from the chief paramedic, confirming her medical intervention saved at least 2 lives. The other, handwritten, from Richard Williams, the man she had pulled back from death. In it, he thanked her for saving his life, and his 3 children from losing their father. The courtroom was silent except for the faint sound of papers rustling. "I was just doing my job," Sarah whispered. "Any nurse would have done the same." Lisa Martinez couldn't stay seated. "Your Honor," she said, standing. "Sarah isn't just any nurse. During COVID, she worked every single day, even slept in a hotel to protect her family. She's the one you call when no one else will show up. She deserves a medal, not a ticket." Judge Caprio smiled softly at Lisa's passion, then turned back to Sarah. "Miss Johnson, this is a $100 ticket. Why fight it in court?" Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. "Because if I lose this case, I could lose my job." The room stirred, she continued, her voice shaking. "My hospital has a 3-strike policy. 3 traffic tickets and you're fired. This would be my 3rd. The first was 3 years ago. I was rushing blood to a patient in critical condition. The second was last year after a night shift. I was so tired I didn't come to a full stop. And now this. I love my job, Your Honor. I can't lose it, the courtroom murmured in disbelief. Just then, a voice came from the back. Your Honor, may I speak? Everyone turned as a man stood up, his head still bandaged, his steps unsteady. He was accompanied by a pregnant woman. I'm Michael Torres, he said. My wife Jennifer and I were in that crash. I was the man she saved, the judge nodded. Please come forward. Michael approached the bench, his wife's hand resting protectively over her belly. Your Honor, if Sarah hadn't stopped, I wouldn't be here. My wife gave birth the next day to a healthy baby boy. We named him Jason, but also Sarah in her honor. The courtroom gasped softly. She saved us both, Jennifer said through tears. She was our angel that day. Before the judge could respond, more people began to stand. An elderly man wheeled in his wife. We're Ruth and George Wilson, he said. She saved my Ruth from a heart attack. Then Richard Williams entered, limping, supported by his 3 children. I'm only alive because of her, he said quietly. His 12-year-old son stepped forward and said, Miss Johnson saved my dad. She's a superhero. By now, even the toughest faces in the courtroom were wet with tears. Judge Caprio looked at Sarah with quiet admiration. Miss Johnson, you didn't just help. You embodied what it means to be human. You risked your job to save strangers. That isn't a crime. That's compassion. He closed the file. Case dismissed. The room erupted in applause. The families gathered around Sarah, hugging her, thanking her, crying. But Judge Caprio wasn't done. I'm sending a copy of this decision to St. Mary Hospital, he declared, and I will ask them to reconsider their policy. No nurse should lose her job for saving lives. From the back, a woman stood. Your Honor, I'm Linda Henderson, the hospital's HR director. Miss Henderson, said Judge Caprio, can this policy be changed? She nodded, her voice trembling. It can, and it will. We need more nurses like Sarah, not fewer. I'll make sure of it. Sarah wiped her tears. Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to help. Judge Caprio smiled warmly. You didn't just help, Miss Johnson. You inspired a city. 2 days later, Sarah was invited to the mayor's office. The mayor himself pinned a medal on her chest, the Providence Medal of Heroism. The same families she saved were there, holding their children, holding her hands. The mayor said, Sarah Johnson, you didn't just save lives. You gave people hope. This city is better because of people like you. The story spread nationwide. News outlets called it the price of a good heart. St. Mary Hospital abolished its 3-strike rule, replacing it with the Sarah Johnson Emergency Response Program, offering extra training and full legal protection for healthcare workers who help in emergencies. The Rhode Island legislature passed the Good Samaritan Extended Protection Act, shielding rescuers from penalties during emergencies, and the Torres family, forever grateful, started the Jason Sarah Foundation to support everyday heroes who risked everything to help others. Ruth and George Wilson donated part of their fortune to St. Mary Hospital, funding a new emergency wing named the Sarah Johnson Medical Center. Richard Williams developed an app called Emergency Hero to connect people with medical professionals nearby. Sarah's story transformed from a courtroom moment into a movement, a reminder that real justice listens to the heart, not just the law. 1 year later, Sarah invited all the survivors to a picnic at St. Mary Hospital. Little Jason had turned 1. Ruth was healthy again. Richard's kids called Sarah Auntie. Sophia, the little girl with the broken arm, now said she wanted to be a nurse. During the gathering, Sarah received a call from the hospital's CEO. Sarah, she said, we'd like you to become the new head nurse of the emergency department. Sarah laughed through happy tears. Around her stood the people whose lives she had touched, and who had now touched hers. At that moment, Judge Caprio raised a toast. To Sarah Johnson, he said, a nurse who reminded us that sometimes the right thing to do isn't written in law, it's written in the heart. And that's how one traffic ticket became a story of compassion, courage, and the kind of justice that restores faith in humanity. So, if you believe everyday heroes like Sarah deserve our support, hit that subscribe button, because there are still angels walking among us, and sometimes all they need is understanding and a little justice.